Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday, November 26th, and the markets are trying very hard to pretend this is a normal trading day, even though half of Wall Street is already mentally in sweatpants. We just got U.S. jobless claims, 216,000, beating expectations. Good for the labor market. Bad for anyone praying for an emergency Fed pivot. And if you were refreshing your phone waiting for today's PCE inflation report, yeah, that's not happening. The BEA quietly delayed the entire October personal income and outlays release because they're still clearing the backlog from the 40-day government shutdown. Apparently, even the inflation data needs a holiday break. So instead of PCE, today we get stronger jobless claims, thin pre-holiday liquidity, and a whole lot of speculation about what the data would have said if the government had actually, released it. Bitcoin is hanging on in the high 80s, XRP's ETF inflows are still cooking, and Solana is doing its best impression of a stable asset while every exchange quietly panics behind the scenes. So, grab your coffee, grab your charts, and grab whatever sanity you have left, because it's the day before Thanksgiving, and markets love to act weird when no one's paying attention. This is the SENB Daily Brief.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
Okay, let's start with the markets. And yes, we actually have a little green today. Bitcoin is trading around $89,600, up about 2.5% after tapping the low 86,000s earlier in the week. Volume is still thin, but we finally saw buyers step in at that big support range between $87,300 and $85,000, the same zone where long-term holders defended price back in March. Is this a reversal, or just the market stretching its legs before Thanksgiving dinner? We'll know soon enough. And look at Solana, up slightly, trading near $140 to $141. But the real story is the chart setup. SOL has been trapped inside a descending channel for weeks, but for the first time, we're seeing a potential breakout attempt. Volume picked up, not huge, but enough to matter, and price is now battling the top of that downward trend line. Of course, every exchange is still having an existential crisis after the Coinbase acquisition news, but Solana itself looks like it wants to wake up. This is what you call constructive, which is trader language for I'm hopeful, but also terrified. Ethereum is back above $3,000, currently trading near $3,023, up a little over 2%. Ethereum is trying to form a higher low after weeks of slow bleeding, and the stochastic RSI is flipping bullish. If Bitcoin stabilizes, Ethereum could be the quiet outperformer going into December. Or it could do what it always does, follow Bitcoin around like a loyal but slightly confused golden retriever. XRP looks surprisingly strong today, trading around $2.23, up about 1.4%. With all the new XRP spot ETFs launching this week, the flows are still solid. Total ETF holdings have now passed 262 million XRP, and volume is staying healthy even with holiday liquidity drying up. The XRP crowd is calling this the beginning of a new era. The rest of the market is calling it, let's wait and see. Jobless claims came in at 216,000, better than expected, which basically means the labor market is still stubbornly refusing to break. And since the BEA delayed today's PCE report because of the government shutdown backlog, that jobless number is the only real macro catalyst we have. So today's market is running on a diet of one macro data point, thin liquidity, and everyone pretending to work. And speaking of pretending, let's talk about the biggest stories driving the conversation today, including XRP ETF momentum, Solana breakout watch, and the latest twists in the JP Morgan saga, right after the break.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
Let's dive into the biggest stories shaping the markets today, and some of these have been brewing all week. The big winner of the week continues to be XRP. Institutional inflows didn't take a holiday. They just kept coming. Across the new ETFs, Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, Grayscale, and Canary Capital, total flows have now climbed past $700 million, with more than 262 million XRP held in custody. Bitwise alone saw $135 million in inflows in the first 3 days, which is impressive for any launch, but insane for Thanksgiving week, when volume is usually flatter than a meme coin chart. XRP hasn't seen this much institutional love since, well, ever. And price is reflecting it, still holding in the low $2 range, still outperforming most of the majors, and still proving that when Wall Street gets a taste of something, they don't nibble, they bite. Solana is doing something interesting, trying to break out of a multi-week descending channel. The chart is constructive, higher lows forming, bounce off the 121 support zone, stochastic RSI turning up, and price knocking on the door around $140 to $141. But behind the scenes, exchanges are still sweating from the Coinbase acquisition shock and the upcoming Solana upgrade. Order books on several platforms thinned out overnight, which is why SOL is bouncing harder than the rest of the market. Solana trades like a gifted high school athlete, unbelievable potential, but prone to random ankle injuries. Bitcoin's bounce back to the $89,000 to $90,000 range is exactly what bulls needed to see heading into the holiday. The key takeaway? Support held. Not dramatically, but cleanly. The big zone between 87,000 and 85,000 absorbed sell pressure, and the market is still running with extremely low liquidity, which means the next big headline, good or bad, could stretch this tape like saltwater taffy. So enjoy the green candles while they last. Or frame them. Or send them a thank you card. They might not stay long. Initial jobless claims came in at 216,000 versus 225,000 expected. That's a stronger labor market than forecasts, which is great for the economy and terrible for anyone hoping the Fed would panic cut rates next month. Jerome Powell looked at today's jobs number and said, excellent, more time to do nothing. And the big story is what didn't happen today. We did not get the October PCE report. The BEA delayed it due to the shutdown backlog, and they haven't released a new date yet. So markets are now running on one macro data point, Thanksgiving energy, and total speculation. This is the kind of environment where one influencer tweet can move price more than an actual economic indicator. The JP Morgan storyline is still unfolding from the weekend. Huge numbers of users reportedly moved funds out of JPM following allegations of targeting Bitcoiners, Strategy Inc., and internal data leak issues. And Max Kaiser poured fuel on the fire, claiming JPM could get crushed by a massive MSTR short if Strategy Inc. rallies. There are bank runs, and then there are crypto-fueled social media bank runs. This one is somewhere in the middle. Barclays analyst said earlier this week that Powell is leaning toward a December rate cut. The bond market responded by pricing that in at about 10%, which is Wall Street's polite way of saying, I don't believe you. And now that we've covered the stories driving today's market, let's zoom out and talk predictions, what this bounce actually means, what to watch into Thanksgiving, and why the missing PCE report might be more important than the PCE number itself. That's coming up right after the break.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, let's talk about what all of this actually means for the next few days, because the setup heading into Thanksgiving is unusual. Bitcoin's move back toward the $90,000 level looks clean, but it's happening on noticeably thin volume. Until BTC breaks above $96,000, this is still just a relief rally inside a bigger downtrend. Put simply, above 96K, momentum comes back. Hold 87K, the market stays calm. Lose 85K, we're visiting the low 80s real fast. So yes, we're still in that it could go up, down, or sideways zone. Technical analysis is a gift. Solana is the wild card. After weeks in a descending channel, Sol is finally trying to escape. If Sol can close above $142, we could see a run toward $155 to $165 pretty quickly, especially with how thin the order books have been. But if it rejects the trend line again, we're right back into the $121 to $130 chop zone. At this point, Solana traders have trust issues. And honestly, fair. Ethereum reclaiming $3,000 is underrated. ETH has been one of the cleanest charts this week, and the stochastic RSI suggests there's room to push higher. If BTC stabilizes, Ethereum could be the one to surprise to the upside, maybe even toward the 3,250 to 3,350 zone. But Ethereum is also known for promising big moves and then taking a nap, so temper expectations. With ETF inflows still strong and Thanksgiving usually being a low liquidity period, XRP could keep grinding upward on relatively small buying pressure. As long as XRP holds above $2.10, the next zone to watch is $2.40 to $2.50. And the XRP community is already calling for $5 by Christmas. Because of course they are. Jobless claims beating expectations confirms the labor market is still strong, but not in a way that forces the Fed to act. This keeps December wide open. No pivot pressure, no emergency cut, just a data vacuum until the rescheduled PCE reports drop. It's the monetary equivalent of the elevator music you hear while being placed on hold. This is the big one. With the PCE report delayed indefinitely, the market can't anchor itself to a fresh inflation print. That means traders are operating off stale data, which creates pockets of volatility, false signals, and overreactions. Basically, imagine trying to drive using last month's weather report. That's the market today. Today and Friday are classic thin liquidity traps. If a big player wants to move price up or down, this is the easiest week of the year to do it. So keep notifications on, unless you want to return from Thanksgiving dinner and find Solana at $170 or Bitcoin at $82,000. Both are equally possible. All right, let's take a breather and open the inbox. Your proof of thought submissions are up next, and today's lineup includes questions about jobless claims, ETF flows, and a conspiracy theory involving Jerome Powell and cranberry sauce. All that right after the break.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, time to open the inbox and check out today's proof of thought submissions. You sent in some sharp ones and a few questionable ones. Let's get into it. First one comes from @ChartPilot87. Sen, jobless claims beat expectations today. Is that bullish or bearish for Bitcoin? Technically, it's neutral to slightly bearish. A strong labor market tells the Fed, hey, you can relax, nothing is breaking, which means no emergency cuts, no sudden liquidity injections, no free candy for risk assets. But hey, if you tell this to anyone on X, they'll still say, bro, number go up. Next question is from Maya R on the website submission form. With XRP ETFs getting huge inflows, do you think this is the beginning of a long-term institutional trend? Yes, actually yes. Institutions don't just test ETFs for a week. Once they start allocating, it's usually part of a long multi-quarter cycle. If XRP holds the $2 zone and keeps attracting flows, this trend easily runs into December and beyond. And if it doesn't, the XRP community will still tell you it's going to $589. So optimism is built into the culture. Next one is from Crypto Dad in Utah. Sen, is Solana's breakout real, or is this another fake out? The breakout attempt is real, but the confirmation isn't. To be real, Solana needs to close above $142 to $145 with volume. If that happens, the run to $155 to $165 opens up. If not, we're right back in the disappointment zone, where Solana traders stare at charts like they're reading ancient hieroglyphics. Fourth one comes from Jeff in Nevada. Why does the PCE delay matter? Isn't it just one report? Normally, yes, missing one report isn't a big deal, but right now, it's a huge deal. Markets are flying blind because inflation data is the anchor for Fed expectations. Without it, everyone is guessing, and guessing in thin holiday liquidity is how you get oversized moves. Imagine trying to cook Thanksgiving dinner without knowing whether the oven is actually on. That's the market today. Last one today, from @MoonbagMafia. Sen, is it true that Jerome Powell secretly times rate decisions to ruin holidays? I'm not saying he does, but I'm also not saying he does. If Powell drops a rate cut on Christmas Eve, we'll revisit this question with a formal apology. All right, great questions as always. Keep sending them in at senbeheromedia.com. Up next, we'll close out with your SENB token update. What's new, what's coming, and how the latest market shift affects the rollout. That's right after.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening with the SENB ecosystem, because the momentum across all platforms this week has been quietly impressive. SENB is trading around $8,060 market cap, and what I like most isn't the number, it's the structure. The chart shows a clean series of higher lows forming over the last several days. Not hype-driven spikes, not reckless pumps, just steady, sustainable accumulation. It's almost like the community is behaving, which is not something I'm used to seeing in crypto. But don't worry, we'll get chaotic later. Wallet holder count is ticking up again. We're at 28 holders, and what stands out is the quality of the entries. These aren't bots. These aren't random burner wallets. They're people who are following the show, interacting on X, joining Rumble, and becoming part of the story. That's how real communities grow, not in sudden explosions, but in steady steps that actually stick. Liquidity on Jupiter is holding around $6,000, and the bonding curve sits at 41%, which gives us a stable foundation for future expansions. Nothing looks overheated, nothing looks fragile. This is exactly how you build something that lasts longer than a meme cycle. With the chart carving its way upward and demand showing up consistently on dips, a new all-time high is absolutely on the table. Now, I'm not going to say it's guaranteed. This is crypto after all, but the setup is cleaner than it's ever been. And for everyone quietly stacking SENB, let's just say this. Your conviction may be rewarded sooner than you think. There's a special distribution event being planned for a specific group of supporters, people who've been part of something much larger than they realize. I can't say more yet, but if you know, you know. And if you don't know, You might want to pay attention. That's all I'll say. Now, here's the part that really surprised me this week. SENB Media is taking off across every platform. YouTube jumped to over 1,000 views in the last 28 days. That's a 999% increase. Rumble is outperforming expectations from day one, with total views stacking faster than the channel's age should allow. And X, we started with around 20 followers. We're now at 65, and engagement is punching way above our weight, which means we're either doing something very right or the algorithm is confused and thinks we're someone important. I'll take either. And with the SENB ecosystem gaining traction everywhere, it's a good time to step back and wrap up today's show. Final thoughts, plus what to watch heading into the Thanksgiving lull, coming up next.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
And that wraps up your Wednesday edition of the SENB Daily Brief, a day full of green candles, surprise strength from jobless claims, and absolutely zero PCE data because the government apparently runs on dial-up. Markets are heading into the Thanksgiving lull, liquidity is thinning out, and the next 48 hours are one of those windows where anything can happen, especially in crypto. So whatever you're doing today, charging your phone, prepping food, or trying to avoid relatives who want to talk politics, keep one eye on the charts. This is one of those weeks where small moves get exaggerated. Now, before we go, a quick heads up. Tomorrow, we're doing something different, a Thanksgiving special. We're bringing in some familiar faces and a few new ones. Tina Bean might pop in with some intel. Alex Jones will probably yell about something that definitely isn't related to Turkey. And you may even meet a couple of fresh characters we've never shown on the Daily Brief before. No promises they'll behave. And of course, Tucker is still out on his assignment. Some say he's searching for something. Others say he's searching for himself. Either way, he won't be gone forever. So rest up, enjoy your evening, and get ready for something a little chaotic, a little festive, and very, very SENB. This has been the SENB Daily Brief for Wednesday, November 26th. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the proof of thought submissions. And thank you for being part of this fast-growing little universe we're building. I'm SENB Hero, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Thanksgiving special. The SENB Daily Brief is a production of SENB Hero Media in collaboration with Whole Shot Coffee, coffee that fuels champions. Written and hosted by yours truly, SENB Hero. Production, editing, and scheduling handled by Maya Valencia, who somehow keeps me on time, caffeinated, and occasionally polite. Original theme music composed and produced by Paul Hahn, the community legend whose beats hit harder than a Fed rate hike. Research support provided by the SENB community. Proof that sarcasm and spreadsheets can coexist. For more shows, merch, and on-chain chaos, visit SENBHeroMedia.com. Thanks for tuning in. Stay caffeinated. And remember, if it's not in the brief, it probably wasn't bullish anyway.
Set my wallet free.